World on Boom Live. I'm Faye D'souza. Thank you for joining us. We're obviously in the middle of a crisis that is both medical, healthcare, and humanitarian. And the government has several questions to answer between balancing the economy, balancing the humanitarian crisis of the migrant laborers and the daily wage laborers, and of course, managing to fight COVID. At this point, I have with me right now a very senior journalist, Ms. Neerja Chowdhury, who's just written a column on the fact that this is a calling need for national governance. Ms. Chowdhury joins me on this conversation. Ms. Chowdhury, good evening, and thank you for joining me. You've talked about how at this point, the government should be looking at bringing in experts from every field. Do you believe there isn't enough of that happening right now?
I think, the Prime Minister reached out to people like Dr. Manmohan Singh, Sonia Gandhi, the former presidents, and that was a very welcome gesture, but it was sort of phone calls to each of them. He's reached out to the chief ministers, which also has been rather unusual for him to speak to them for 4 hours, eliciting their ideas. We wouldn't have had this happen, say, 3, 4, 5 months ago. But we are in the midst of a huge crisis, and it's going to be a long haul ahead, as you said. All kinds, on the economy, on the health factor. And so really, I think that all that needs to be done, but it needs to, what I've said in my column, it needs to be formalized in an ongoing basis, because you have huge experience on the opposition side. There are men and women there who've handled crises of huge magnitude. Telephone call from Mr. Narendra Modi to Mamata Banerjee, or Mr. Amit Shah to Mamata Banerjee. Look, this is what we are doing. We've got feedback that there is violation of this happening. Please look into it. And we are sending these teams to assist you, as they've done in the other 3 states. It needed all that because the state government felt they were not, the teams arrived and then they were told about it. So they felt their own authority was at stake. And it was, as I said, it would have taken 1 minute's phone call to sort that out. And so also, initially when the lockdown took place, I don't know when the chief ministers were taken into confidence. But and the chief ministers, for instance, Kerala decided to ease out things. And when the center took a position, they said, okay, we will take that back. And that's a very good attitude, because as I say, these are things where you have to move in step and do them together. But it's easily done if you reach out to each other. And or if you have a mechanism, where once a week you talk to the chief ministers and say, this we are doing. Or somebody from the center side reaches out to somebody, the chief secretary. Cabinet secretary to chief secretary, there can be an established mechanism. As I said, because it's going to be a long haul, it's very important to put mechanisms into place.
And you're quite right about the fact that the solutions will lie in center, state, city, district level, panchayat level coordination, because it's actually a blanket problem that covers us all at this point. How would you rate communication by the government so far? We've had messaging from the Prime Minister, but a lot of the other messaging that's coming, say, from the Home Ministry and from other ministries, have been in sort of page releases, 15-page releases, and then it depends on how people actually understand or read everything. Things are changing pretty quickly. Would you say the government has done a good job in communicating with citizens?
Look, I think this is such an unprecedented situation that we find ourselves in. I would not judge them too harshly, though, as I say, certain things need to be ironed out, because in no country in the world has the leadership not come under attack for this, for not thinking ahead, for not moving in time, and so on. And our government also is now putting things into place, putting systems into place. And that's the way it should be. So I would say, yes, they have been found wanting in many areas, but I would not judge them too harshly, given the kind of situation, the like of which we have never seen before. No crisis in the past that I can remember matches this one.
Right. You've also talked about how we need to go back to the basics at this point. You mentioned a couple of times, forget our differences. The Tablighi Jamaat problem, which in my opinion, distracted the media for more than 2 weeks, where they were focused on this one. I mean, to be fair, it was a super spreader, but there were a lot of other problems that were happening in the country that deserved coverage. Do you believe we need to step away from everything that makes us communal at this point?
I think absolutely. That could become another time bomb ticking away. And we don't want any of that. I think we've got to move away. And I think the BJP president has made statements of that kind. The Prime Minister himself has that this is beyond any, caste, creed, religion. We've not got to communalize it. So the right kind of message has come, but it has to be implemented that people on the ground don't communalize it. And Tablighi Jamaat, surely, Faye, what I have said is this, that there must be some people in this country who could have reached out to the leadership of the Tablighi Jamaat behind the scenes and prevailed upon them to make statements to their own members, listen to the doctors, listen to the government, because of the nature of the crisis we are in. And this is in your interest, in the interest of the community to do so. Now, these are track 2 efforts, as I've said, which have been pursued in the past. You reach out, you reach out to those people and you convince them. Now, that didn't happen, as you and I saw, for so long. And as Arif Mohammed Khan, the governor of Kerala, had said, there are 80 to 90,000 members of this Jamaat in the country, spread out in far corners of the country, in the villages. And if they disobey you, then that's a huge danger lurking out there. And I think it could, behind the scenes, have been handled, reaching out to people who have a hold on them in some way. But to use that to communalize it for small, narrow purposes, I think it's a very petty and narrow-minded and short-sighted thing to do at a point like this, when so much is at stake in India. And today, Faye, we are Indians first and Indians last, and that is the way we have to respond to the situation.
How much of this blame do you believe lies at the doorstep of the television studios that made this about a Hindu-Muslim thing?
I think, yes, a certain amount of blame does lie at some of the TV channels' doorstep.
Well, I'm going to focus on what is extremely good news, Ms. Chowdhury, and that's the map of cases of mortality and of what's coming out of our hospitals right now. Now, we had initially, there was a great deal of concern about the fact that India was not testing enough, but we understand now, if there were cases that were missed because of the lack of testing, they would have presented at hospitals, they would have overwhelmed our hospitals as respiratory distress or as severe influenza. We haven't seen that happen. Our numbers of cases have actually, the curve has stayed fairly steady, in the sense that we're not seeing the kind of exponential rates that people have seen overseas. Is it fair to say that the government has done an excellent job of locking down on time and controlling the numbers?
Yes, I think that's where the Prime Minister must be complimented for deciding to go in for the lockdown when he did. It was a hard decision, it was a sudden decision, and it has hurt the migrants and the daily wage earners very badly. That could have been avoided, but certain things, as I said, are unprecedented. But yes, otherwise the numbers could have been huge, and in a country like India, it would have been very difficult to control. It could lead to breakdowns of the, social breakdown of the system itself. So I think, and we still have a lot of hardship ahead, economic hardship, but I think there's little option but to go in for the lockdown and then to calibrate the easing of it. That is the real challenge that lies ahead. And that is why I say all hands on the deck. PM, CM, the DM, district magistrates are the real ultimate warriors fighting the battle out there. And then right down to the Sarpanch level. That chain of command has to really kick in very effectively.
We do know, and this is my last question. We do know that the government has different committees right now. They have a committee on finance and the economy headed by the finance minister. Mr. Shah, or the Minister of Home Affairs, is heading a committee on his own. Mr. Rajnath Singh is heading one committee himself. Should we, is it, and there are two arguments here. One is that everybody just focuses on controlling the spread of the virus and saving as many people as we can. Or should we, or is it fair to expect a sort of octopus-like behavior where we see finance announcements coming in, we see announcements about migrant labor, about feeding people, about ration, or can those problems wait until we've got a handle on the healthcare issue?
I think healthcare issue is very primary, because the economic re-kickstarting the economy is going to be difficult unless you get a handle on the health issue. But the thinking about what to do, when to do, and when to do, that can begin. And I would say the government could consider bringing on board, even on these committees or even on adjuncts to these committees, some kind of a mechanism, the vast experience that lies on the opposition side. Bring in people from the Congress on how to deal with the economy today. Bring them informally. Tap them for their ideas. So also in each of the committees. And not just politicians, but others in other areas of endeavor. Again, huge experience that lies there. Right down to the district level, where you have retired people with enormous experience of the district, which could be of help to the DM, so also to the CM, so also to the PM.